What is up, Overwatch community? My name is Trips, and welcome back to another episode of Watchpoint. We have another lovely guest on today's show. Before we introduce him, I want to welcome back Volcha.
Hello.
And Yiska.
Hello.
We have the team captain for Liquid, Novx, on the show. So I want to introduce you. I want you to give us a little bit of a background for people who somehow don't know who Liquid is or who you are. What would you say that you actually do with the team other than the obvious coach?
So,
I mean, what do you actually, who you are and what do you do on a daily basis, rather?
So on a daily basis, for me, it's anything from maintaining our schedule to, we're sitting in games, I'm recording them, breaking down those VODs, seeing what people are doing wrong, seeing where the miscommunications are in the team, and making sure that when we go in that next day or that, a couple days later, that those issues get resolved so that we can continue progressing and working better as a team.
Okay. How long have you been with Liquid, the organization itself?
I signed with Liquid on October 1st, so I've been with them just over 2 months now.
Okay, awesome. Do you have, anything interesting you can tell us from your experience with the organization, positive things that you've noticed, either between players and things that you've accomplished while you've been with them so far?
I mean, I got lucky. I've worked with a lot of players and over the time that I've been in Overwatch, and I got pretty lucky with this because a lot of the players on this team are all former Quake pros, and they've all been together for the most part for a pretty long time. So the players themselves, it's really easy to work with them as opposed to on some other teams that maybe aren't, as veteran in esports. We have guys like AZK, who's been around for years in CS. We have Dehang, ID, Rafa, who are all obviously, really well known in Quake. So we have a lot of esports veterans on this team. And I think that helps us a lot because everyone understands that it's not, it's not 18-year-old kids. And there's nothing wrong with, younger players. They're the future of esports, obviously. But it does make it a lot easier for me when I'm dealing with, someone who's been around for 10, 12 years playing these games. And,
People who are super experienced and understandable.
And who know how to work with others really well. Because I have had some bad experiences so far with teams I've worked with, and not to say anything bad about any of them, but it's a big difference playing with a 28-year-old as opposed to an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old even, because a lot of the Overwatch team is pretty young even at the pro level.
Well, it's all about attitude and everything to deal with. Basically, what I've heard, this is no specifics at all, but I've heard a lot of kids who come into these scenes, they're really good at games, but they're not very mature in the way that they deal with people and organizations and teams and things like that. They're invincible, but that's being a teenager. You feel like that. One last question before I know Yiska's brimming right now. Before Liquid, so what did you do before Liquid? Do you have any past, accomplishment? Well, I'm bad with that word. Accomplishments that you can, kind of quote yourself of who you were before the team coach? Anything that you've done in the scene or previous scenes?
So speaking specifically to Overwatch, I got into beta in the first beta wave very early on. And I got, I got acquainted with players through other friends of mine. I didn't know any of these guys early on, any of the pro players that I do now. And what ended up happening was I was playing with some of my buddies who was, one of my buddies was the manager of Splice at the time. So I met guys like Steel and Pure and those guys and basically just networked through them.
Yep.
And after doing that, after getting to know a bunch of people, guys from all different teams, Envious, Liquid, etc. I reached out to Internet Hulk from Envious, and they gave me a shot as an analyst. This was right after an event where they actually said, we're not really looking for a coach or an analyst. And I'm like, you know what? I know they're not looking for one. I'll reach out, see what happens. That didn't work out. Worked with Northern Gaming for about a month. We all know how that organization...
With Reds, right?
With
the American team, not the European.
Northern Gaming Red, the one with Mangachu and Naptime. So I worked with them for about a month or so. That organization swiftly went down into a blaze of glory, and right after that, I decided, you know what? Let me reach out to Liquid. I messaged one of their guys. They said, no, we don't have a coach, and they go, send your resume in. I'm like, all right. Had my interview, did a couple days trial. They said, you're in. We want you. So that was right. Unfortunately, it was right as E-League was about to begin, so I wasn't able to go to E-League with them. But right after E-League, I started, and here I am.
Awesome.
Nice.
So yeah, just going to open the floor now to anyone else. If you want to fire any other questions off in this small little interview, I just wanted to tuck into the beginning of the show, and then we can get into more news topics.
Yeah. I was wondering, because you said that they were obviously esports veterans, and obviously the Quake players are, quite seasoned in that sense. But is it a challenge to get these people, because Quake was a one game, and most of them have had their career in that. Is that a challenge, like, to get them to be teammates?
No, I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's definitely not always the easiest thing to do. There will be at times where it seems like someone goes back to their, I'm going to go get this frag and chase someone down. But it's not a big issue because everyone understands that, this is a team game, so we have to play around each other. And while there are missteps sometimes, someone may get a little bit aggressive, go, all right, I'm on a roll, I'm on fire here, let me push into them, and get picked. And it happens to every team, not just us. It's not a huge issue, and to be honest, it's a bit of a surprise to me because as somebody who almost exclusively plays team games, I've never played Quake before. As much as I know that really confuses a lot of people. I go, why are you in Overwatch then? But yeah, so I've never played Quake. I've watched Rafa and ID and Dehang and whoever else streams it on rare occasion play a bit. So you can kind of see that come through a little bit, but not really. It's not a major issue that we run into.
Okay. So not even in communication, because one thing, the Cooler debate recently came up where they, Cooler played for Misfits at DreamHack, and then people said, okay, he's Lucio, he's obviously calling. And I was thinking, it's one thing to be, this genius Quake player that had it all in his head, but then to be able to communicate it, okay, for Cooler it's extra hard because it's in English. Has that been, is Rafa talking enough? Is Dehang communicating?
For us, Rafa is one of the primary callers on our team. And that's where it comes in again, where I referenced before the veteran, experience, where, these are players that maybe have come from solo games, but let's be honest, they've played all these games over the years. Everyone's played games like Counter-Strike. Everyone's played Team Fortress. Everyone's played all these games. So while they may come at a competitive level from 1v1 dueling type game, they've all played the team versions of the game as well. So it really isn't much of an issue. It's not really an issue getting people to call things.
Okay. So ironically, like, I think in the CS scene, AZK, from what Steele said, and what's his name?
Dazed.
Dazed, exactly. He was more a silent player. So ironically, probably AZK is probably the quietest player on the team, even though no.
AZK as well, because I know Steele. I've talked to Steele. Like when I first got on the team, I asked Steele, I'm like, hey, I know you have a history with AZK. Do you have any advice for me? Because again, I'm a huge CS fan, so I've seen all these Thorn videos and Richard Lewis videos with Daze and Steele and all them. And they're like, oh, it's AZK was so quiet, Skadoodle was so quiet, all these things. And I'm sitting here getting the team like, well, AZK's calling targets without a problem. Well then, he's communicating when the enemy doesn't have a hook, when he has a hook, when he pulls someone in. Like, well, that issue doesn't exist. So it really is interesting coming as someone from an outsider perspective who's seen all these other stories in the past, going, oh, none of that seems to be applicable here.
I wonder why. It's almost like if two, very loudmouthed people that are very dominating in their personality aren't on your team, you actually are able to open up,
Yeah, I mean, and this is something we've heard as well through not just AZK, but other people, where sometimes maybe they just don't. And it happens in any game, any team I've worked with. It always happens is someone wants to be loud, and the other person just goes, okay, I'll just follow them. But all these players are, whether it's on our team, whether it's on any team, all these players are, very knowledgeable when it comes to the game, because there's not many games that are like Overwatch. Counter-Strike, for example, the esports thing in Counter-Strike, CSGO is new, but CS 1.6, CS 1.3, this goes back 12, 16 years or something.
Yeah.
So, on a lot of the time, the players would just transition from one. CS 1.6 goes to CS Source, Source goes to Go, everyone forgets about Condition Zero, things like that. And it's weird because Overwatch is almost like that game of misfits. You have those TF2 players who, let's be honest, TF2 never got any love from Valve. You have Reflex players. You have some League of Legends players.
That game really, right?
Yeah, it really allows a lot of different players with a lot of different skills. You're not going to see someone like Shroud, for example, who in CSGO is known for, or at least, in streaming CSGO, not lately in competitive CSGO, is known for just tapping people's heads. You don't really have that in Overwatch because you need to have a really big toolkit. You can't just play one hero. And we've seen the downfall of players, of people who can only play one or two heroes really well. Well, when that hero goes out of meta, what happens when you can only play Soldier and Widow? So it's really interesting to see how Overwatch is evolving as a game and how the player base is evolving around that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to dive into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of the show, this is something that, correct me if I'm wrong, from some of the posts research that Yiska did before the hand, MLG announced that they will be having predetermined maps from bottom to top. So things that, in my opinion, and I don't think it's an opinion, have been part of esports, whether it be League of Legends, Dota, picking heroes, or even Blizzard's own games like Heroes of the Storm banning maps, Smash Brothers banning maps. Something that MLG is taking and basically flipping on its head, is just saying, okay, here is, who is facing who and the maps you will be playing, rather than having the staple that's been in the industry for a while now.
So,
continue.
So I have a question. From your point of view, what is Blizzard's reason for this? Is it because of viewership? Like they don't think it's fun to watch map pick and ban, or is it because some maps are too long, or is it because they want to really get all the maps into the game and viewed?
I think it's the same issue that they had with Stopwatch. It's their argument that is, we don't want to only show, for Stopwatch, we don't want to show the first half of a map, but there's so much more of the map, so we're going to do it this way, because they want to show all of what they put into the game. So in this sense, it's the same idea. We don't want people who literally hate all capture point maps and Ilios to not pick those games. We don't want to have a just payload and hybrid tournament, basically.
Well, that's my thought too, but I'm wondering what Novx has any insight about that, what Blizzard has tipped their hand about that.
I mean, we all know what they've told all of us, whether you're a pro or whether you're just, a guy reading Reddit. Everyone knows that Blizzard, and this goes for all their games, want you to play their maps. They want you to play all of their maps. I mean, you can't really blame them. They've put a lot of design, a lot of effort into making these maps look really nice and, in most cases be really fun to play on. But I think, in my opinion, they've missed kind of the reason why people are upset. And it's not that we don't want to play every map. We would love to play 13 maps, soon to be 14 with Oasis being added in. But it has to be understood that from the player's perspective, as a member of a team's perspective, it's really difficult to practice 14 maps every day, essentially. Let's say we're doing a tournament prep. We want to go, okay, rather than doing each scrim block typically has 5 to 6 games played, and it's a 2-hour block. And most teams will have at least 3 scrim blocks a day, so minimum of 6 hours typically for these teams, 6-7 days a week sometimes, especially when you're coming up to an event. It's just not realistic. It's not feasible to practice all of these maps and get the highest level entertainment, which is one of my issues with this whole situation. Is you want your game to be entertaining. You want there to be spectators coming in. There's been a lot of criticism about Overwatch as a spectator experience. There's a lot of issues with the spectator UI, and it's been overhauled numerous times throughout beta and now on live. We've seen it completely overhauled. So to completely ignore the player base that's trying to help you, and where we want to play this, and we want everyone who's watching this to have fun. Keep in mind, the people who are watching are not just fans of Overwatch. There's players, Smash players and CSGO players that come over and watch Overwatch because, hey, Team Liquid's playing, or hey, Envious is playing. People who have never watched the game before come over just because their favorite team is playing from a different from a different game. So they come over and they go, why are these players playing so poorly on this map? Well, it's because as much as we would love to, it's just not realistic to expect us to practice 16 or 13, 14 maps. It's too much. We can only play 15 games a day in practice, and we want to be able to say, okay, we just ran this on one map. We ran this on Watchpoint Gibraltar, and we got rolled with it. Let's see how it does against another team. Let's see how they respond to it so we can maybe adjust our strategy. Now that we've adjusted our strategy, let's go at it again in the next set of scrims. We'll do Watchpoint Gibraltar again. And it works now. Now we'll try that again in the next set to see if it was just an anomaly or whether that's actually the fix for the for the problem. So to be telling us we want you to play all the maps, that's fine, but you have to do something in return. You have to go, okay, this is going to be this season's map pool. These are the 8 maps or the 9 maps or something that you're going to play. And yeah, you might have predetermined maps, or you might have to play all 9 of those maps. And there might be some strange map draft system or none at all, who knows. But you just can't just say on a 1 week's notice, and that's where this whole thing came up from. On 1 week's notice, 8 days, you cannot tell teams, by the way, we're not having a draft, and you're going to have to play these maps, because there are teams, ours included, we haven't played certain maps in a long time because they're just known as our Instabans. We don't play Volskaya Industries. Nobody in North America does. Yeah. It's just a thing. We've seen it some Korean games, but nobody in North America plays these maps. And that's where the issue lies, is that if they had told us a month ago, hey, no map draft, predetermined maps, here you go, that's fine. We wouldn't have been happy with it, but we could have worked around it. It's just so much work where now all of a sudden we have such a packed schedule the next 5 or 6 days with the winter premiere event and then flying to MLG, the media day at MLG. We don't have enough time to go in and really drill these maps. And it's not a matter of us not wanting to play Volskaya. It's that when we play Volskaya, we really want to put on a show. And if you're putting in 2 teams that have never played the map before, who have they've played it for 4 days, you're not going to get high quality entertainment out of that for the viewers or for the players.
Here's the issue in I think Blizzard sees in that logic is, I think they are honestly convinced that there's more entertainment value in showing all the maps and having solo queue players come in and say, okay, this is all the maps I play. And even the casual player base go, okay, why aren't only 5 maps being played? This is apparently, and I obviously don't agree at all with this, because it's not a real advertisement for the actual thing we're trying to, get out there. But I think they really think that level of play is not as important as diversity or, the novelty factor of having all these new maps, possibly new strategies, and, the gambling factor too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So,
yeah, and, it's something that all the teams that are involved are really upset about this situation. We've written a letter, sent it directly to Blizzard and to MLG. We're trying to get this, even if not, fully like a map draft system, we want there to be a compromise made where we understand that Blizzard wants the game played the way they play it, or they want all the maps played and all that stuff, and they want the game played a certain way in the competitive scene. But at the same time, there has to be a compromise made for the integrity of the event. If you want to have a high-quality event, you want the teams, if you want to have compelling entertainment, you want the teams to be competing. You don't want to see, a team just walk over someone. There's a reason that you don't watch Envious play in like an open cup, and there's a reason why they don't stream them just beating up, 1,500 SR players. And it's not because Envious isn't an entertaining team. It's because when if you're a competitor, the people who are watching these events are typically competitive-minded players. It's not all casual players, it's not all competitive, but typically the people who are going to watch competitive Overwatch are going to have a competitive mindset. And the result of that is you really want to be able to put on the best show possible, and that's just not what that is.
I get
Go ahead.
I get the feeling that it's gonna affect comps in a way. They're just gonna prepare for the maps as a whole, as opposed to probably like really troubleshooting a map as you described. So we're probably not going to see like really specific builds like Envious on Gibraltar type stuff. We're probably going to be seeing pretty bland builds and bland tactics, I would guess.
That is actually a good question. Are you right now preparing maps, or are you trying to come up with the strongest strategy? For instance, let's say, okay, this is one thing we actually haven't talked about, because it will be, from all the sources I've heard, it will be played on a new patch. And that is obviously
that's another
blowing
subject.
my mind, right? That's like, okay, but for instance, just for the sake of the argument, if you were to find out the new NIP thing, where they have this triple tank, they have been playing it for, 3 months or something. If you were to find such a strategy that almost works on every single map, is it more desirable to find this, strategy that's probably just too strong and then overwhelm your opponent rather than practicing for maps?
Well, I mean, every team has their, let's call it a default, for lack of better words. In CSGO, it would be the equivalent of, 4 AKs and an AWP. Every team has their default setup. And then they adjust maybe on a team or on a map basis. Hey, rather than a soldier here, let's pull out a Widow, try and get a pick on Gibraltar because, it's a really open map. You can force people off the balcony. So each team has a default, essentially. So what's going to end up happening, in my opinion, is you're not going to see these crazy compositions that maybe we've seen in some of these Korean tournaments where they play Volskaya more. If anyone watches those Volskaya games from the OGN Apex tournament, they're really entertaining games. But it's because the maps are played there. You're not going to have that. What we're going to end up seeing is like 3 tank DPS, 3 tank, just bullying people around, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's, don't get me wrong. I love playing Roadhog. I think it's really fun to just randomly hook someone from behind a shield and they go, what the hell? There was a shield. I think that's extremely entertaining. I can understand as a viewer, though, as someone who watches a lot of Overwatch, that's not really the most fun thing to watch is, they got a hook because they're both playing the same comp and they won the lottery in that little role. And, well, I guess that means they win this team fight because nobody knows how to defend this point. Because it's going to be really basic strategy.
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit on just you said, and I saw the post that you made. It was just like an excerpt of the post. I don't know where it was from, that you're collecting either names or names of teams to petition almost towards MLG that, like you said, this needs to change or compromise. Is with the minute grasp that we have here. I mean, what's the focus? Like, is there an idea that you have? Do you think it's easier to be flexible than it is to stand firm on the stance that this is what esports has done? You cannot change this.
Well, I think that in our opinions, I wrote this letter, and I had input from a number of people, including our manager, Tifus, as well as Baymax, who's the manager of Immortals. And, it's really nice to see that there's teams that aren't even going to this event. I mean, I have a full list of teams here that support Liquid, Fnatic, C9, Complexity, FaZe, NRG, Rise, and Envious. We're the 8 teams that are going to MLG. All 8 teams have signed on and said, this needs to be changed. If at the very least, in the future, if it's too late for MLG, in the future it needs to be changed. Then we have Immortals. Immortals, Galeforce, Selfless, Method, Kingdom, Luminosity Gaming, Black Dragons, Bird Noises, and Oslo Lions. It's really nice to see, especially the bigger organizations here. Teams like Luminosity Gaming, who's a really strong team in North America right now they moved to Canada, and teams like Immortals, who we've seen just absolutely dominate as of recent, and who is a big organization in their own. It's really nice to see these teams that aren't even going to the event signing on. And I mean, more or less, good.
I feel like this is something that it's the same with Stopwatch. It's the same with One Hero Limit. These are things that they introduce either. I mean, this is hard for me to believe it's really MLG because Blizzard owns MLG. So there is some backhanded connection there. But this is one of those things where a company, either Blizzard, comes up with an idea. They really want to stick with it because they feel like it's a strong thing that they can, put their stamp of approval on. We did this. We made this great. But the community just doesn't want it. This is not something that we're like, okay, that sounds like a cool idea. Maybe we want it. It seems like nobody's for it. Nobody's with it.
I would guess that. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna run with the old. This is like a Blizzard philosophy type thing. Like they're basing this off of philosophy, and that's probably, I would guess, the philosophy that they don't want the in-game experience to be too far away from like competitive or what they see in a competitive setting, and that's been something that they've been striving for since Overwatch began, is reconciling the two. So that's probably what they don't want people to play the game and play all these maps that they're never going to see on streams and competitions, and feel like those maps suck for some reason or whatever it might be. Just a general disconnect.
But I have to just off that point is that I bet no one has watched Heroes that much, Heroes of the Storm, but this is a Blizzard game. Haunted Mines was a map from Heroes of the Storm that no one liked. No one played. It got removed from ranked play. They don't play it in competitive. It's the same exact thing as Overwatch. They ban and pick maps. So why are they picking Overwatch as this? We're just going to not abide by our other game that we've been doing that with. They have bans. They have picks. They've taken maps that nobody likes out of play. Why is Overwatch getting different treatment? This makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and this is the fun part. You know what our Haunted Mines is? Ilios.
Ilios.
It's fucking Ilios.
No, it's Volskaya. Ilios has played. Believe it or not, Ilios is one of the more practiced maps.
Is it?
Volskaya and Hanamura. See, for me, it's, this all came back, and I'm sure everyone here has been in the scene long enough that they remember Gamescom, which was only 3.5 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. So most people that are in the competitive scene were around back then. There's a few outliers. But everyone remembers after Gamescom when this all happened 3.5 months ago, not that long ago, we're in this exact same situation. We were told this will never happen again. We are very sorry. We're sorry to the viewers. We're sorry to everyone. We will make sure that this is better in the future. And there was a big thing when it came to Gamescom, which was, with that one was like, there was no hero limit originally, and that was right after Gosu finally said we're putting in one hero limit, and the Gamescom's like no hero limit. Well, okay, that's I understand if you want to come in and mold esports in a way and mold Overwatch in a way for esports, that's fine by me. I'm really looking forward to this OW League, even though we have very little information about it. But on the other hand, you have to understand, you can't just go, well, there was 6 months of beta competitive Overwatch. Even if it was beta, it was still, there was a competitive scene. And, there's guys like ZP and Hexagrams and all those guys who've been around for months now, a year now, who have helped mold this scene. You can't just completely go, this is the way that Gosu did it, but we don't want that, so let's put that to the side and let's bring our own system in and force everyone to use that. Because what ends up happening is, it's not that we don't want to play these maps. It's not that I like Ilios, actually. I think Ilios is a very well-balanced map for King of the Hill. There's an outside, there's an inside, there's,
Pit of Death.
A Pit of Death, which, again, Roadhog, I love it. So, it's not a bad map. The issue, in my opinion, is the 2CP game style has been heavily criticized since before Gamescom.
Just with the snowballing that happens.
Mm-hmm. With the snowballing, and basically it's one team fight. It's if you start feeding, if you lose the first fight, you're dead for 2 minutes essentially while you get your own ultimates. Use all your ultimates, you take the point. Yay, we got a six-player team kill. Push on to the next point, fight for 2 minutes. Yay, 6-player team kill. We win the map. That's one of the issues is, and we saw this with Anubis. Was Anubis early on, if anyone remembers, was not played. It was completely ignored. And then they made that slight adjustment. They opened up the left side of the map. And that really did completely open up that map in a competitive sense, where you can go in these different avenues of attack. So it's not a matter of the map or the playstyle even being bad at all times. It's that if you really are serious and we don't want to get rid of these maps, which I understand, they put a lot of work into maps, especially in a game like Overwatch with how much detail there is, you have to adjust the maps at the very least.
So I have a question for you, Novx. From your point of view, what is the worst problem for this tournament? Is it the number of maps or the maps themselves?
To be honest, in my opinion, the biggest issue with this tournament isn't either of those things. It's the fact that specific maps are being played 3 or 4 times as much as others. Of the 47 games that are going to be played, 19 of them are split between 3 maps. The remaining 28 are split between the remaining 10 maps. That just doesn't make sense. Ignoring what maps those 3 are, it could be the 3 most popular maps in the game. It could be Hollywood, Kings Road, Dorado, which are all really big, iconic maps, as silly as it sounds as in like a 1-year-old game. Those are 3 really big iconic maps that everyone knows a lot of the intricacies of, so there's a lot of high-level play that can go on those maps. But you can't have almost half your tournament on 35% of the map pool. It's just, or 30% of the map pool, whatever it turns out to be. You just can't have that. Yeah. So, when Ilios is on there for 9 guaranteed games out of 30 guaranteed games that are going to be played, if every team, 2-0s, 3-0s, 5-0s, whatever it may be, all their competition, you're going to see 30% of that tournament played on Ilios. And although that's very unlikely, that's ridiculous. They couldn't have said, all right, let's put Li Zhang here. Let's put, Nepal here. It's not like these are maps that are hated. It's not like they're putting, it's not like they're going, all right, well, we have to put in Hanamura. Let's just put Ilios instead. They'll like that more. It's not, there's no compromise made. There's no balancing here. Ilios has played 9 times. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, Anubis has played 5 times and King's Row has played 4 times. So, you know, or King's Row's played 5 times, I believe. So the fact that there's 13 King of the Hill games that are guaranteed and 9 of them are on the same map makes absolutely no sense to me.
How did they get away with? I mean, I don't know how accurate these numbers. This is a post made by, looks like Admiral on over.gg. He's saying that Hollywood is played like one of the least amount. Yeah. How do they get away with that? If I guess I don't understand how they. Maybe if they have to do this structure, make Hollywood Dorado and King's Row the most played, but we can still show off Ilios, Volskaya, and those other maps. Why are they making some of the ones that we hate the most watched?
That's what I don't get, and I feel like that comes, that loops back around to Blizzard really wants their maps to be showcased, and it confused me. I just linked in Skype the map counts, and because I know the one that Slasher had posted in the OW was actually a little bit off. So a user on Reddit said that's wrong, and I went and did the math on it and counted them up and whatever else, and that's the actual numbers. So even on there, you go and say, okay, well, Eichenwald's played 4 times, King's Row's played 4 times, Watchpoint and Numbani are 3 times each. That's not that bad. But then you think, but why not just switch, Route 66 and Hollywood, or switch, Nepal and Lijiang with a couple of those Ilios games, just weave them in and out. And if every map was played give or take 4 times, because we could do that. Keep in mind, there's 13 maps and there are 47 games being played. So you could almost get away with every map being played 4 times and a couple of them being played 3, which you could put into the that Ilios, Volskaya, Hanamura pool of those 3 maps. You go, okay, these ones aren't liked as much. Let's just play them 3 times. And while we wouldn't be happy with it, we'd be more okay with the thing that we have now, where it's absolutely lopsided and ridiculous. And it's what confuses me is Hollywood, in my opinion, is one of the most fun maps to watch because it has an inside component at the end. It allows a lot of different classes. You can see Junkrats, you can see Maids, you can see Widowmakers, Hanzos. It's one of those things where it's the map that lets you show off the game in its entirety, and it's it's tied for the least played map for this event, and it's just so confusing. And keep in mind, some of these maps, if the series don't even go to their, if the grand finals is 4-0, we might not even see certain maps being played, which is the exact opposite of what Blizzard apparently wants. Yep. Is we could end up in a series where we could end up in a tournament where half of these maps don't get played because of sweeps.
Yeah, and that's exactly the one thing. Ilios is also going to be played 100% because it's always this decider map, seemingly. It's always game 2, Game 3 in the semifinals, and Game 4 in the finals. It has a very real chance to be the series ender, right? Think of this. And it's not even just a numerical issue because, okay, I'm actually going to defend your team here because if I looked at your statistics, you were very good on King's Row the last 2 months. So your earliest King's Row, if it goes bad for you, is Game 7 in the finals. That's the earliest you can get King's Row. Just think of this. Your best map, you're not going to get it either in the group stage match. You're not going to get it in the winner or loser matches. Definitely for Group A and B. Then semifinals, if you end up being in the semifinal 2 based on your seeding, you don't have it in there. And then Game 7 is the decider map. And there,
you want to go one further? If we end up in some really strange world where there's a bunch of tiebreakers, we can see Ilios played 19 times this tournament.
Holy shit. What?
Yeah.
Ilios is the tiebreaker map for the group stages, and Lijiang Tower is the tiebreaker map, as they're both King of the Hill for the the playoffs.
So we're having an Ilios tournament, boys.
That's entirely possible because we're having a lot of CP. In some very odd
world, that happens.
Yep.
Oh
my god. Okay. I mean, I don't want to harp on this because we do have plenty of other things to bring up. I guess as a final note, as a final note, it's really, do you think that other than team organizers and people that you're gathering from the community to show MLG that this is not what we want, do you think there is an effective chance that we can rally, even posts on Reddit or very, very nice, not toxic tweets towards MLG and Blizzard to let them know? Do you think this is something that they will cave on?
That's one of the issues. Is when I was discussing with a few people, and they're going, why don't we post this on Reddit? And I go, I don't want to. And they go, why? And I'm like, don't you want as much support as possible? I go, yeah. But to be honest, I'd rather a small group, and keep in mind, we're talking about big organizations here, Envious, C9, Liquid, etc., speaking up saying, guys, this needs to be changed. I don't want it to turn to that where Blizzard can just go, well, we're not going to be bullied by Reddit. There's a reason why, I'm very active on the competitive Overwatch subreddit. I make a lot of posts there. There's a reason why I didn't post this there. That I could have gone public and, that post would have been on the front page of Reddit. Slasher could have done the same thing, could have posted on Reddit and made, a big thing about it. And I basically said, in a channel we have for pros, I said, look, I'm going to draft a letter. Please urge your teams to reach out to me. Give us your support so that we can fix this issue. If not now, for in the future. And I didn't want it to turn to a thing where someone like Siegel, for example, goes on his stream and goes, this is ridiculous. Let's all, blast them on Twitter. And Blizzard gets 30,000 tweets saying, change this format. I don't want that, because I know that can happen. Let's be honest. They've done it in CSGO. I don't, and that's what's very different between our subreddit, because our community is split in half between two different subreddits, as opposed to anyone who looks at the CSGO subreddit where it's all the people in one. So had I made this post, it probably could have got to the front page of both subreddits, honestly, without anyone even tweeting about it. I didn't want that to be the case.
I have a solution for this. Since Blizzard wants to keep the two communities together, casual and competitive, or tournament and casual play, they should probably cave in this, and in that case have seasons on the ladder limited to 5 maps or 6 maps or 7 maps, something like that. That way that can transfer over to the competitive play. They'd be dictating more or less to the competitive scene, these are the map pools. You're going to be seeing some icky Hanamura and some gross Volskaya, but I mean, at least it'll be kind of manageable, and we'll be able to have parity between the two scenes as far as what they see. So someone on the ladder, they're playing, I'm playing the same map that I saw Team Liquid play, and this is where Rafa got the graviton surge off, and get all that hype. But at least I think that would be a decent compromise on Blizzard's part if the competitive scene would be okay stomaching, the odd CP map here and there if it's evenly distributed.
Yeah, I think the suggestion that we came up with among myself and a few other coaches and managers was, look, we understand that you guys don't want just a full map draft where, 2CP is just banned out, because let's be honest, the majority of people don't like 2CP. Even in, casual and competitive play, it's not the most fun game to play. So the solution that we had come up with was, why not do it similar to the BlizzCon thing, but with a small map draft? So let's say, a best of 3, or best of 3. There's going to be a King of the Hill, there will be a 2CP, and there will be a payload map. So 2CP is played out, but rather than it just being, all right, well, that's Hanamura, give them all 3 2CP maps and say, you ban one, we play the remaining. All 3 King of the Hill maps, you ban one, we play the remaining. And yes, you're not going to have Hanamura and Volskaya played probably at all. But rather than taking that as we don't want to play your maps, take that as there's a reason why they don't want to play our maps.
Yeah.
And
fix it.
There's a reason why this is happening. And like I brought up before, with Anubis, we saw this with Anubis. It's not like this is a new thing. They made an adjustment, and now Anubis, again, while not being perfect, is palatable. You can play the map and go, all right, this is our strategy, and we can build the strategy around it. And that's how you might get teams to practice a map like Ilios more. We practice Ilios a bit against various teams. There's a lot of teams that are good on Ilios. It's just the other two maps, in all honesty, are just balanced better. They're just they're just cleaner maps for everything, for team fights, for aesthetics, everything about them. Just in my opinion, it's a cleaner map. So, it's that thing where it's not that we don't like your maps. It's not that we don't like your game design. It's that you need to understand, while if we have to practice these maps for 6-8 hours a day sometimes, make it so that they aren't unbelievably one-sided until like one person breaks the line. It's like, oh, now the game is over after we've been fighting for 40 minutes. We had a game less than a week ago in a scrim that went to 8-8 on Volskaya Industries because neither team knew how to play the map. It was one of our first times playing it, and it went to 6-6 or 8-8 or something. And it was against a good team. It wasn't like this was against some, U.S. 87th team. This was against, a top 8, top 10 team, and this is the issue we run into, is the maps are just so unbalanced, and there's been no changes made in the last year to most of these maps.
I mean, one tweet comes to mind that Tevik made in June, where he basically said, okay, these predetermined maps, that's ridiculous. And ESL even had a more sensical lineup because it was just the first map that was predetermined. And he was complaining about 2CP2 back then. And ESL Sean, so he's a product manager, I think, nowadays, but used to be the head admin, basically said, well, the goal is to make you like 2CP. That's some, that's not coming from him, that rhetoric, right? That's 100%. Obviously, I don't want to put anything into his mouth, but this sounds like Blizzard rhetoric, right? It's like, are you going to Stockholm syndrome us into liking these things?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to get off the plane at MLG and they're just going to hypnotize me and go, you know how to play Volskaya. Like, it's not that we don't like these games. It's not that we don't want to play their maps. It's just like, there has to be compromise. If we're going to compromise and say, look, there's 13 or 14 maps, we have to practice on them, you have to come back to us and say, we see your concern. We're going to make these adjustments and we're going to, let us know how it works. And, you see how it goes with CSGO, where Inferno had a lot of criticism for a long time, and they took it out. And what did they put in? They put Nuke in. Oh, Nuke God. Has had more criticism in the last few months since it has been put in the game than anything Blizzard has ever seen. And yet, here we are yesterday, a few months after that month was added, there has been a new version of Nuke added to the Steam community page. Mm-hmm. So, yes, that took a while for them to do, but Blizzard needs to get on board. Blizzard needs to do that same thing where they go, okay, we recognize that, you guys want to learn how to play this map, so we're going to work on it, and we're going to make it so that you guys can play this map. We're going to balance it. We're going to work with you rather than just, rule with an iron fist.
Okay. So this, I'm going to cut off because I feel like we're repeating ourselves multiple times here. And I want to move on to something that Yiska brought up earlier. And according to his sources, I believe somebody made a post about it on Reddit. I want to say it was Slasher again, that the bigger thing besides the maps is them releasing next Tuesday the balance patch that includes the new Symmetra, which for anyone who has played on PTR is not just like a buff to her shield or something. It is a completely new character almost, with the shield generator and I believe this is also going to bring in things like Torb, his armor, which I don't know how much big of an impact it'll make on the pro scene, but it's just this idea that they're releasing these things, and then MLG is also playing on this new patch. Because do tournaments even have they have the ability, like when I believe Anna came out, nobody played Anna at the tournament right around that time.
Well, you can disable heroes.
She was banned for
yeah,
whatever one that was.
Qualifier.
But you can't really play on previous patches, can you?
I mean,
so without banning out entire
Blizzard. Yeah, and, they have it for World of Warcraft for when they have to go back and play something on a previous patch. They do have that for other of the their other titles. They have it for Hearthstone. We've seen it. The question of whether or not it exists for Overwatch, I don't personally know. If this is the case, if the patch does happen to land right before this event, that's going to be a really big deal, because heroes like Symmetra, even in their current state, can be really strong on specific points. I know I've seen Internet Hulk come out and do a interview saying that's going to play really into our strengths, because there are teams that have old strategies. Envious was really known early on for running that Symmetra, playing that, Torbjorn Symmetra, really high armor type build around their team. And when you're going to run into this patch where you're going to have people with 400 HP that are a Sombra, that are a Tracer with 375 health, that's going to be huge.
That actually makes it all worse, right? Because now you don't have defaults. Now you don't know if your best map, like you can't say, okay, we are very decent on this map, so we don't need to practice this as much. This content patch, like with all these changes, has the potential to just completely destroy your defaults. And now you start from zero.
Dice. Everything, both maps and your like roster, or not roster picks, but your team comps. It's just, welcome to MLG, roll your dice at the door, good luck.
Yeah.
You wanna okay, let's put the tinfoil hat on. I think that's deliberate. I think they actually timed the patch so it's a tournament where nobody actually knows what the fuck is going on, and we see a lot of diversity in strategy. At worst, I think that's the worst that Blizzard wants, is that, and I think this is actually going to happen in some sense, that we're going to have the old thing like the OW Open, where you had everyone having their own strategies, and then suddenly, Beyblade comes along, and the second tournament day, everyone plays it. Right?
Yeah.
I very much predict this was going to happen. Like, day one, we're going to see a lot of diversity, then, or even, the possibly the entire group stage. And then there's this one team that has a good feel for the meta, and then till the next day, everyone's going to pick it up or try to emulate in their own, way. And then we possibly will only have this, because you have no time to actually come up with a counter of any sort, right?
Yeah. No, and it's one of those things where you can go in with your standard strategy, and again, without trying to loop back, it does ring back in from before we were discussing maps, where if you want to have a compelling tournament, if you want to have a big tournament, if you want to have compelling entertainment for your viewers, if you want to have a high level played, which at $100,000 tournament with arguably 8 of the best teams in North America, why wouldn't you want the highest level of competition possible?
I'll tell you.
Randomly landing, if this happens, if this is true, and they land a patch a couple days before, that could really throw a wrench into some teams. Because keep in mind, Blizzard always does their patches in most, if not all, of their games on Tuesdays. So that would be the 13th. We leave on the 14th for Vegas. 15th is our media day. 16th, we have 3 hours prior to the event starting to practice. And then obviously during the event, when we're not playing, we can practice. But, we want to be able to talk about other maps, and, we want to be able to go in and discuss strategy. And it's not just going to be, we're not just going to have the whole day to grind out. It's not like we have an entire week just to grind this out.
I really think this is the same thing that they expect, is that, you guys are all pro. This is just for all teams. You guys are all pro players. You should know how to play on any map, right? That's cool. We're also going to throw this patch at you because you guys should just be able to adapt to it. You guys should be able to put on a show. But that they don't understand that if this does go through, people are going to be confused on random maps they don't practice, be confused with picks that they don't understand or they don't know how to fight exactly against. If you want a good tournament, if you want it to be good for viewers to watch, teams need to be comfortable. They need to be playing their best. They need to have pocket strategies, but be able to do them, because if you throw all of these numbers up here, teams aren't going to play with cheese strats that might work and pull out Hanzos randomly or something like that. They're going to play comfortable default. They don't want to lose. This isn't a game for them. This is money. This is things that are on the line.
Yeah, and that's actually, you guys, I think justifiably think, okay, a high level of play is what we want and creates long-term viewership. I think Blizzard thinks, okay, if we bring out the patch on Tuesday and the tournament is on the weekend, I guess that's a good showcase, where people tune in and say, what's the meta right now, actually?
Yeah, how do I use Symmetra?
It's almost insanely ballsy how much they trust their balance and their testing. I mean, like, that's some big balls there.
Yeah. Well, because if something comes out as super broken, it will just, like we talked about with the Beyblade, it'll just ruin the whole tournament. If you don't play it, you lose. If you do play it, it's just going to be mere matches.
Yeah, and to touch on what Yiska just said in regards to, this is the meta. There's been criticism of ESL even now, because ESL on their Overwatch page plays back old replays of games from like Gamescom group stages. We're talking about before heroes were even in the game, certain heroes. So there's a lot of criticism about that, where if you're a casual viewer who goes, oh, look, there's the nice ESL tournament going on. Oh, they don't play Ana at all in this game. Why is everyone choosing Ana in my games? Okay, I'm going to call them idiots. The pros don't play Ana. You're watching this 4-month-old game, whatever it may be. That's not, and keep in mind, this is ESL. This is an organization that hosts tournaments in every game across the world, from IEMs to, CSGO majors, where, if you're a casual viewer and you watch it and you stop in and watch this and go, oh, well, this is what all these people are doing, I'm going to model myself after them. And then suddenly you have a guy that just only wants to play Reaper and yell to your diva about how they're an idiot for choosing diva, because no pros ever choose diva. And it's like, again, that doesn't help when we're trying to expand the scene. So
I have a question, and it's probably a stupid question, because I can't imagine it will be a huge issue, but how's Symmetra on Ilios, mate?
I want to say that we played someone who played Symmetra on Ilios, or maybe it wasn't Ilios, but I think we played someone who played Symmetra on King of the Hill. It was hilarious. I don't remember what. I think it was Li Zhang Tower on like Night Market or something. We just randomly got, and there's just a bubble that just kind of floats past us. We're like, what the hell? I don't remember how that game went, but all I remember is it was hilarious, because Symmetra is one of those heroes that just everyone knows in pubs. You're playing a McCree and that Symmetra just bounces around you in a circle, just laser beaming you to death, and you feel like the biggest idiot when they kill you because it's a Symmetra on attack. It's one of those heroes that I like the design aspect of it, and it's like Hanzo to me. I like the design of the hero, but its fit into a competitive environment is so hit or miss sometimes. It's ridiculous. And it does require, if you're going to run something like a Symmetra, you have to run an Ana with it. You can't run, unless you're going to run a triple support setup, you have to run an Ana, because you just need that raw healing, which you're not going to otherwise have. That's one of the reasons why Torbjorn was so strong with Symmetra all that time, because again, you get that armor supplement. You get the
effective health.
Exactly. You get all that extra, and keep in mind, armor's better than actual health as well. Yep. So it's that type of give and take where if you want to play a Symmetra, you have to play other classes that support that Symmetra. It's like if you want to play a McCree, a lot of the time you're gonna have to play something like a Reinhardt on a payload map. Otherwise you're better off just going Soldier because they can't really just do everything on their own. They require the support of other heroes, which is a really good thing in a game like Overwatch, where it's not just like, I'm a McCree and I'm just going to bounce around and right-click everyone now. It's nice that that's changed, but the way to fit Symmetra in is not going to be found out in 4 days. Especially when we can't even
right?
Yeah, you're going to see that odd team. Like, I wholeheartedly expect Envious to pull that out because Internet Hulk loves Symmetra. When I was with Envious very briefly, Internet Hulk absolutely loves Symmetra and he loved Diva. So he's probably just up in the air about this meta right now. Oh, he must be thrilled.
No aim, no brain, Winston mains.
Yeah. I don't know if there's too much other to say about the patch in general. It's not something we can harp on too much. Yeah. Do you think there's some other things that we have that Yiska had listed here? Do you think that anything as far as like single eliminations or anything else, as far as just the structures of organizations go, is something that can be cleaned up a bit more and something that can be I don't want to say like formatted so that every tournament can just pick up the same rule set, but just more so anything that can be adjusted and to benefit teams more from an insider perspective. You are the one that is facing and has to go with one tournament running it this way and one tournament running it this way and doing best of ones or best of whatevers.
I am glad that we don't really have that single elimination type thing. Like, CSGO majors have been criticized for, years at this point. Why at the biggest tournament of the year are you running single elimination? Or, what is very close to, best of ones. Where, best of one is not the way to eliminate teams. Single elimination is not the way to eliminate teams, at least in a high level tournament, these 100K events, 75K events. If we're talking about a Gosu Gamers Weekly, that's another thing. It's a 5K event where it really doesn't matter if we go out. Let's say we go out in the first round. Well, we played FaZe. We go out in the first round. Is what it is. We're talking about teams that are traveling halfway around the world to come to this event. So they really, the teams deserve to be treated with that respect that, hey, you're committing to us to play at our event. You're committing in us to compete on our game and showcase our game at the highest level. We deserve the same respect from them as, hey, we're going to build a strong tournament for you using a strong format. And while I don't know if I would say that having a single format for all events is the best way to do it, I think we do need something that's more streamlined and more widely accepted as being just a good format. And maybe, a tournament here or there kind of expands or takes certain aspects away. But the big thing comes down to just, we can't have these things where it's all predetermined maps. So, and we tell you a week before the event. And, well, that really screws our planning because, for us, we take this very seriously. This event may just be coming up next week. It's 7 days from now or something, 8 days from now. But we started our preparation for this event 2 weeks after E-League. The teams that have been in this tournament have known about this for a long time. So I feel like we deserve to be shown the respect that should be shown to competitors, where we want to compete and showcase your game. So give us a format and tell us about this format ahead of time. And there should be like a mandatory, like if you want to have a format, like best of three, that's fine for elimination, but you have to give that to us, a month ahead of time, and just let us know and let us prepare for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, there's also another tournament going on the same weekend, right? So, I mean, So we're going to have 2 tournaments, basically at the same time.
3.
Running 3 tournaments? Which
there's a Chinese event as well.
Okay. On a new patch, right? I mean, couldn't have been worse timing. And then one of them has predetermined maps. I assume I don't know about the Chinese tournament, but both of them are invite only.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no open qualifiers anymore. For some reason, the Overwatch scene has forsaken it.
Well, that's not entirely. There is an open qualifier as well there's the Winter Premier Series event.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Okay.
The Overwatch Winter Premier is a $100,000 tournament. That's an open tournament. Last I looked, there's a couple hundred teams I think that have signed up for it. So it helps those newer players, because I get this asked a lot to me, is how do you get into the pro scene? And the obvious answer is don't suck. It's be good. But it's really hard to do that when other games have things like ESEA Client, where all the competitive like-minded players go and they play together. But in the case of Overwatch, you don't really have that, because our competitive system is just really out there. I'll queue up with a buddy of mine who's a streamer, and we're queuing at he's 3,900, I'm 3,500, and we get a guy who only wants to play attack Symmetra, and there is no professional, or there's no, even at the highest level, at 4K plus, you have this.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for players to go, I want to take this game seriously, I want to grind my way up, and I want to become a professional player, when they have to deal with stuff like that. Yeah. And when you have these open events that are only once every 6 months, that can really, and where they just get walked over in the first round, it can really hurt, potential players, potential really high rated players.
Yeah, I mean, to play devil's advocate a little bit here, people have to realize Overwatch is not even a year old. I mean, beta, yes, technically, but CSGO has been around for 15 plus years. Dota, 10 years. League of Legends is going on something now. What, 7, 8 years? 9 years? Yeah, I mean, these games have been around for a long time. While, yes, Blizzard and Overwatch, they need to adapt so that they don't take as long to get up to these points. It's still... we still have a lot of room to grow in, every aspect.
That's true. But at the same time, you think about CSGO. I mean, I remember when CSGO was in beta and they were giving away those little discs with, the Galil that had a scope on it. And the game was horrible. Anyone who goes back and looks at an interview of, Get Right or someone like that from during that time would laugh at what CSGO was. It wasn't taken seriously. It was an absolute joke of a game. I feel like with the way Blizzard has marketed this and with the way Blizzard has really pushed this, CSGO didn't have anywhere near the backing that Overwatch has. This isn't a matter of Blizzard not having the backing of organizations. You have a team like Envious who flew out and bought condos, 2 players in each apartment essentially, for their players in downtown North Carolina. For 5 Europeans and an American to become an American team somehow. North America's dream. So to compare the two, it's, while yes, Blizzard should have, that grace period, so to speak, because the game's only really been out for 6 months, there's a lot of expectations there. There's a lot of, while yes, you're correct where they should be given the opportunity to expand, it needs to not take this long. It needs to be fast.
Here's the thing, and I mean, you can safely step away from this because what I'm going to say is going to be controversial for a coach for Team Liquid, but at least in CSGO, the premise was always to find out who the best team actually is. Why the fuck is NRG invited to every single tournament where they have actually no business in competing in, right? Why are they always the afterthought? Obviously for exposure. We're not trying to find the best tournament. We're still organizing tournaments for the best NA team. Okay, that's maybe a worthwhile endeavor to have. But when do we actually have the possibility to determine who's the best in the world? If you weren't invited to Apex, you had no chance to compete. What do we know? What if Envious doesn't win MLG?
Well, we had this, which was E-League. E-League was very much this. It was an open qualifier. It's a very odd system to use as an open qualifier, and there were mistakes there. But the most, not even that, honestly, the most glaring mistake to me was that North America and Europe did not face each other until the grand finals.
Yes, that's true.
That's one of those things where I actually am a huge fan of E-League for both CS and Overwatch, because I think TBS has done something really well, which is they understand that they aren't coming into a scene and dominating it. They want to come into a scene and say, oh, this is how you do it? Okay, we can conform to that, and we can make adjustments. But then, there's a massive glaring mistake where they looked at it as, they could market it NA versus EU. But, we want to see how, let's say at the time, we wanted to see how Team Liquid, when I wasn't really with them, we want to see how Team Liquid will do against Rogue, or how, C9 will do against Misfits. But we didn't get to see that, because what ended up happening was all the European teams killed each other out, and then all the North American teams killed each other out, and there was 2 teams standing. And it's like, if you want a tournament like that, I can watch a Gosu Gamer, an Alienware Monthly Melee. If I want to watch Rogue versus Misfits, I can just watch any weekend show match between teams. Which,
Alex, that's the worst part about all this, is that Gosu Gamers have a legit claim that they actually had the most competitive tournaments in the entire scene, because European teams would actually go onto American teams and win day in, day out, every weekend. Envious dominated the EU tournament, even the old Envious did. That you can make an argument that was actually a more competitive, competitive minded, or in determining what the best team at the time actually was, because there was no confusion that this is going to happen. And again, if Envious doesn't win MLG, what does the Apex record really mean? Because currently you have to consider them, at least in the power rankings, to be the strongest team in the world. Now, what if I don't know? What if you guys win? Is everyone then going to question if Apex was actually, a very high-level tournament in that sense? And again, can we make any conclusions based because of the patch? Right? We're not determining who the best teams in Overwatch are. We hardly have determined what Overwatch is, to be fair. Apparently, every 2 days before a big tournament when the new patch comes out, and that is really, I don't know, for someone that has an interest in not really regionalized, or actually wants to see just the best Overwatch he can see and see what it looks like. I feel like I'm not being delivered this at all.
Yeah, well, there are members of the community who have made rankings. I know Slasher has a power rankings thing that he's made very clear that he doesn't like Liquid. Slasher has a power rankings, and there's like 10 Korean teams on there. And don't get me wrong, I think Korean Overwatch is unbelievably fun to watch, because it really is just watching a whole new game. A lot of these heroes, they made things like Symmetra work even before it was buffed. So just imagining how strong that's going to be once it is buffed, it's going to be crazy. But then you have the other end where it's like, how do you really say that Runaway, some random Korean team, is better than a team like NRG or Kingdom or Liquid or Rise or any of these teams that, sure, in the case of Liquid, we've had a recent downfall. We've had a recent, a couple, small Alienware Monthly Melee events where we haven't really showed our true potential and what we're capable of. But that doesn't mean that you can suddenly wipe away 6 months of competitive experience because of one event. And that's what bothers me. Is I was asked a while ago, what are your top 5 teams in the world? And I didn't even put Ninjas in Pajamas in the top 5. And everyone's going, oh my god, but didn't you see their, and this is going back a month or something. And they go, And they go, how can you not have ninjas in pajamas in your top 5? They're amazing. And I go, because I'm going based off of more than just the last 2 weeks. I go off the last, month and a half or something, and I look and I say, yes, Ninjas in Pajamas is extremely strong right now, but Rogue has better, high quality wins over this period of time where maybe NIP wasn't performing at the same level. Where I had Fnatic as I think my number 3 team in the world back when they had IDDQD. Ooh. And everyone's going, oh my God, how? And I go, just wait. I play these teams in scrims. I watch how they play. And then IDDQD left and I went, shit.
Yeah.
I was telling people, just wait. And then IDDQD has left Fnatic. Oh no.
Yeah.
So, but even now, they're one of the best teams in North America, and they actually have North Americans on it, so that's nice. Then you have other teams who I feel, for us, may be a strong matchup where I feel on any given day that any of these following teams could beat each other. Cloud9, FaZe, Complexity, NRG, Rise, Kingdom, Liquid. Any of these teams on any given day will beat each other. Yet all of us seem to struggle with certain teams like Fnatic and Envious. We might beat FaZe one day, and the next day FaZe beats us. Well, FaZe is ranked 13. We're ranked 35 or something. So, is that because it's a fluke? Is that because we're getting better as a team? But I feel like too often in the North American scene, there's just that thing where everyone goes, it's a fluke. They took one series off of them. What does it matter? But then if a Korean team does it, it's the opposite. It's, oh my God, the meta. The meta has changed. Korea, bow down to our Korean overlords. Things like that. Where there is some sort of strange double standard because we're North American. And that's what I don't get.
It's probably just from the fear of other games bleeding in, the whole Korean domination in other games.
Yeah.
Probably what's informing that.
I mean, I think that's one thing that we have to consider too, why Blizzard is structuring the tournaments as they do right now, is that they have major StarCraft 2 Korean PTSD, right? They don't want. They made it pretty clear that they don't want that to happen again. Also with the region locking for WCS, where people are saying, for instance, Monte Cristo recently said he can see complete Korean teams playing in the NA region.
Yeah,
not going to happen. I think not going to happen.
I could see it.
Do you think Blizzard is going to let that happen?
See, what confuses me is when the OW League was announced, it was very clearly stated, we are going to start with North America. And then the MVP of BlizzCon got a free invite to the OW League, and he was Korean.
Okay.
So within 48 hours, they completely contradicted their entire announcement. So at this point, I could see that. I could see these big organizations like SK Telecom, and I could see these, Samsung, the guys who they don't view Overwatch, or they don't view esports rather, as a way to make money. You have an organization like Team Liquid or Envious or Optic or any of these huge organizations who've been around for years, and their goal is to make money, to grow esports, and their businesses. Then you have a guy who comes in with $500 billion or something and go, I'm Samsung. You are a billboard for me now. Thank you. And they just, they pay them money. They take care of their families, and they go, just compete and represent us to the best of your abilities. And I could see them coming in, and I could see that attracting Blizzard. Because keep in mind, we're talking about the teams that were at BlizzCon. There was, the owners like the Patriots and a couple other big sports franchises. There's almost nothing bigger in this world than Samsung. It's one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
So I could very much see that attracting a company like Blizzard to go, wow, let's give them spots. because that's a lot of money they're bringing.
Obviously, but I mean, Korea is going to get that in some way, shape, or form anyway, I think, and that is probably going to happen with OG and together.
And Kespo.
Yeah, the argument Monte made is that if a guy like Mark Cuban comes in and says, well, why can I not buy a team full of, foreigners that dominate the league? Like, I own an NBA team that works. Why is that not possible? I tell you, like, that's not true for European sports, for instance, for soccer, where you have people significantly richer than Mark Cuban come in, and they aren't allowed to buy any player they want. They have to keep a ratio in the Premier League, for instance, right?
Right.
So I think at best you're going to have, and this will obviously inflate the price of NA talent, but I think at worst you're going to have like, okay, we have 6 people, 3 need to be NA. I think that's realistic, and then they're going to have these limiting restrictions, and I don't think it's as big of an obstacle as everyone's making it out to be.
Then that raises the next question, which is, you look at a team like FaZe, who's currently a 3-3 split, and there's been a lot of criticism, not just among the community, but among pros, where, Alienware monthly melees on a Tuesday, Wednesday for North America, FaZe is playing in it. Well, next couple days after that, Thursday, Friday, the European one's playing, and their FaZe is playing that one as well, where, a team like FaZe is considered, an international team where there's 3-3 and they can pick and choose where they play. And then you have a team like Envious, who's 5 Europeans and kind of a stand-in. I'm not going to really count him, though, because he's not signed. 5 Europeans, and at the time it was 1 North American, and they moved to North America. And they said, we moved to North America. We've relocated all of our players. We are North American. And everyone kind of agreed, okay, that's ridiculous, but that's fine. If you want to live in North America, that's fine. If you want to call yourself North American. Then you have a case such as what happened with MLG, where the CEO of Rogue, the eSport, one of the top 5 teams in the world right now, even after this shuffle thing, one of the top 5 teams in the world, and arguably, goes, why weren't we invited to MLG? And everyone's like, because you're European. And they go, no, we're moving to North America. Well,
that was stupid, though. Like, that was totally their fault, wasn't it? Like, that they didn't announce it. Like, nobody apparently knew. I saw some caster opinions. Like, even people at the OW Open, for instance, I think, what's his name? Mr. X?
Yeah, Mr. X.
Yeah, said that he had no idea, even though he spent like the better half of two weeks with these players, right? That they were going to relocate. So I don't know. That was entirely their fault. Now, obviously, it's not as big of an issue because they were invited to IEM, right? So
well, that raises the next question: is how many North American teams are we going to have? At this point, Luminosity Gaming, a very strong team as of recent.
Everyone comes to North America.
LG, a very strong team as of late, is living in Canada right now. I don't know whether they live there permanently or whether they're an extended boot camp or something, but I believe they're living there. Fnatic is going to have, I believe they all live in the United States. Splice recently picked up a few Europeans. They're getting a team house in North America. FaZe, I believe, is going to have their players all in North America, if I understand correctly.
Really?
Hopefully they pick the right city.
All these teams, from what I have heard, is a lot of these teams, Envious, obviously, is in North America. Rogue, potentially, is going to be in North America. Europe is literally going to be 3 teams. Europe is going to be Misfits, NIP, and Reunited.
Dude, and these are like...
okay,
not Reunited, but these are like top 10 teams, right?
Yeah, Reunited back in the day, they were the best team in the world. But 2 of the top 5 teams are going to be European, and let's just count it: Envious, Rogue, Fnatic, Immortals, C9, Complexity, FaZe, Rise, Kingdom, Liquid, Splice. Who am I missing? NRG, all these teams. So what's going to happen when the E-League Season 2 is announced? Okay, well, who wants to take place in the North American qualifier? And all the people are like, well, we're FaZe and we're currently European now.
Yeah.
Like, bonjour.
How many invites are there? 4 for Europe? United, Misfits, NIP. Oh, there's one slot for us.
Hey, FaZe. And I'm friends with some of the guys on FaZe. I like all the guys on FaZe. I have no issue with them. But someone needs to step in and say, if you're North American, you're North American. If you're European, you're European. You can be a European team that lives in North America. But as of right now, we're looking at having potentially 3 European and 15 North American teams.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. Everyone's just going to jump to wherever and just, I'm French, okay, guy? This is where I am.
I mean, I get asked all the time, does Team Liquid have a team house? And I should just suggest, hey, let's go to France because we can be top 4 in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into all the European events. We'll have 0 Europeans. But apparently that's how it works in Overwatch, which is very confusing to me. On even the base level of that, it just doesn't make sense. And Envious has been criticized a lot about that. How are you a North American team that doesn't have a North American on it? And they go, we live there.
I guess I'm kind of okay with it, but I kind of view it from an American sports consumer point of view, and I'm kind of used to my players coming from other cities or even other countries even, they import them, and it strikes me kind of the same thing. So as long as the team identity is basically where it is stagnant in the same spot, I guess I'm okay with that from a consumer point of view.
I don't because I know in Dota a couple of teams have been accused of they will move to an area, whichever region it is, go in there, sweep a bunch of tournaments, and then leave with a shit ton of money. Yeah. And it just that's where I draw the line. I don't care if there's a bunch of Asians and a bunch of Europeans or something on a North American team. It's when it's super obvious. You move in, you play a couple tournaments because you're going to win, and then you just get out. That is abusing the system.
Well, and that's the thing is if all these teams want to come to North America, that's fine. It doesn't really hurt us. But at the same time, you then have to go, all right, well, if there's 3 real if there's 3 real European teams or 4 real European teams, and there are 20 North American teams that are contending, or 15 or something at a high level, these tournaments need to be adjusted where it's 8 North Americans and then 4 Koreans and 4 Europeans. It can't just be 4 North Americans and 4 Chinese and 4 Korean and 4 European, because then you end up with abuse where a team, not saying they would do it, but Fnatic or FaZe or any team like this who's an international team, even C9 now I believe is considered international. Just can go, well, this week we're Swedish, and let's go to Sweden to boot camp and do this event. And they do that qualifier. You should have to register. You should have to register as, I'm European or I'm North American. You can't just change it because this tournament looks harder on North America. Because not to punish them, but if you don't do that, you end up punishing all these other North American teams that don't really have that luxury.
I mean, Skipjack at this point has an identity crisis, right? He's I think German Italian that is playing on an all French roster, and now they move to America. That dude lives everywhere, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. As much as I would love to continue this conversation, I want this. I want this to be in a little bit of a package for viewers to be able to watch the whole thing and make sure everything is, a little bit shortened. Do we have anything that we want to last topic discuss really quick? Have we kind of laid? I mean, Novx, have you laid all your concerns about MLG on the table? Do you have anything, last minute that you want to address?
No, I think everything I've said, I've said a lot in private, and I've said a lot to developers, and for Overwatch, I've said a lot in the email that we drafted. So I think that really speaks for itself. I don't want it to be like a call to arms where everyone feels compelled to chime in and fight for us, because we should, in theory, have the power to make this change. It's just a matter of working with Blizzard and working with MLG and kind of hoping that we can get it done in time, because it is only on 7 or 8 days notice. So,
all right. I want to give a big shout out to you, Novx. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad that we were able to have such a long discussion and kind of flesh everything out. And while, like you just reiterated on right there, you're not trying to become some big, lead for the scene and make all these changes yourself or anything. It's just, it's nice to see that there are concerns. So we're not just, catering to Blizzard's will and just doing whatever they say. But, getting the word out there is a good thing too, even just to the people who take it more seriously than the, big masses. If you guys enjoyed anything we talked about today, obviously the biggest thing is subscribing on our YouTube channel. You guys are doing really good work on that. We are, getting a lot of discussion going on there and in the Reddit posts and things like that. We are live every week on Thursday, roughly around 7 o'clock. We're not, 7 o'clock and we turn on the stream or anything, but you can always check us out on Twitch and stuff like that. All of that is all in any of our social medias. If you guys have, any concerns about the format, anything, or anybody you'd like to see on the show, talk to us, email us, anything like that. And I think that wraps about it. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye-bye.